Hey everyone, my name is Brendan Finch from Inner Orbit, and in this video we're going to go over a scaffolded example of a standard phenomena and some assessment items that you can use in your classroom to assess whether students can apply their understanding of heredity. This video is going to consist of a couple different parts. So first we'll go over the standard. I want to walk you through what you should know about 3LS31, this third grade heredity standard. And then we're going to go over a phenomena. So this is an opportunity for students to take what they understand about heredity and apply it in this really specific context. And then lastly, we're going to go through some examples of questions that we can use to scaffold up to a really rigorous performance of sense making at the end of an assessment. And that is truly the goal of this standard, or these are called performance expectations. So this video is perfect for you if you are new to Inner Orbit and you want to get an idea for how we write our questions and scaffold up to these rigorous performances. If you're new to the NGSS and are just trying to get a feel for what these standards are all about. And then finally, if you're writing questions, this video is going to help provide a framework that we use at Inner Orbit to scaffold up to much more rigorous performances by leveraging these dimensions. So to get started, let's dive into 3LS31 and take a look at this standard. So it's a third grade standard for life science where students are asked to analyze and interpret data to provide evidence that plants and animals have traits inherited from parents and that variation of these traits exists in a group of similar organisms. So that's the big performance expectation, what students have to do at the end of the grade level. The three dimensions of the standard are the SEPs, the science and engineering practices. In this case, students are analyzing and interpreting data, where they need to analyze and interpret data to make sense of phenomena using logical reasoning. The DCI, there are two of those for this, are LS3A, that's inheritance of traits, where students have to understand that characteristics of organisms are inherited from their parents, many, not all. And LS3B, variation of traits, where students have to understand that different organisms vary in how they look and function because they have different inherited information. And the last part are the cross-cutting concepts, and in this case it's patterns, where students have to find similarities and differences in patterns can be used to sort and classify natural phenomena. So our goal is that we can find a phenomena, so that is something that happens in the real world, for students to apply their understanding of all of these things to, and then make sense of that phenomena using the skills and knowledge that they have acquired in your classroom. So let's take a look at a phenomena here. So now we're going to take a look at the Inner Orbit site, and we're going to walk through one of our phenomena, and this is how do tigers get their stripes. So the phenomena is the thing that students are taking their understanding from classroom and applying it to. In this case, students should already have had some instruction around heredity. They should understand basically how this works. And what we give them are an opportunity to take that understanding and apply it. So this is all about parents and offspring of tigers. It's a really, really simple example of how heredity might work, where the traits of the parents are different, and then the traits of the offspring or children are different as well. So we set students up with really, really simple, some cute tiger licking its cubs, some tiger parents and their offspring, and then finally a model tiger family for them to dissect. So these are the pieces of data that we want students to analyze and interpret. And now we're going to go down and I'm going to walk you through 4 different question types, kind of like 5, but 4 basic types to help you scaffold up to that rigorous performance. So the first questions that we write are called prior knowledge questions. So because this is a third grade standard, there is knowledge that students should have from first grade that precedes this standard. So this standard we looked at has 2 different DCIs. There's LS3B and then there's LS3A. So one of those focuses on inheritance and the other is on variation. So we will write questions that focus on the prior grade level. So if it's a third grade standard, we go back to first grade or kindergarten or second grade. If it's a middle school standard, we'll go back to 3-5 and ask a question about their prior knowledge. So in this case, what students should have learned in first grade is that young animals are very much but not exactly like their parents. Plants are also very much but not exactly like their parents. So the question we ask is, young animals are blank their parents. So students should understand that they are not exactly like and not completely different than, but similar to their parents. We also have another question at the bottom where we ask about the other DCI. So that was LS3A up here, inheritance of traits, and this one is about variation of traits. So students should leave first grade understanding that individuals of the same kind of plant or animal are recognizable as similar, but can also vary in many ways. And so in the question, we ask, when young animals grow up, they will blank. So ideally, students will answer that they're similar to other animals of the same species. They should understand that similar animals are going to look similar, but not the same. Now we'll go down to the next question. These questions we call on grade level knowledge. They are just focused on a single DCI. So do students understand the content at the third grade level? The last question was about prior grade level understanding. And now we want to know, do you know what you need to learn at the third grade level? So this question hits both the DCI inheritance of traits and variation of traits. And we asked students, Lizzie has a black cat. Her cat gave birth to some kittens. 4 of the kittens were black, but 1 was orange. Lizzie wonders if this means that her cat is not really the parent of this orange kitten. Is Lizzie's thinking correct? So we want students to understand, no, because offspring can be different from their parents. And there's also another cat that was probably involved in the conception of that offspring, and that might lead to it. It's not important, but we just want them to know that different organisms can vary in how they look and function because they have different inherited information. And also, many characteristics of organisms are inherited from their parents. Many, but not all. Those are 2 really important parts that question is asking about. So once we've validated that students have prior knowledge and then on grade level knowledge, they understand the DCIs at the grade level they're at, now we want to dig a little bit deeper and see if they can answer questions about the other dimensions of the standards. So now we're going to dig into our 2-dimensional questions. So right now those are labeled formative on the site. We're going to change that to 2D. And so we have a few of these questions, and there are essentially 2 different ways that we ask these questions. So one will ask about the DCI and the cross-cutting concept. Those are kind of like the 2 halves of the standard. Or we'll ask questions about the DCI and the SEP. So if students are able to take their understanding of inheritance and variation and apply it to the science and engineering practice of analyzing and interpreting data. So let's dig into one of these questions and take a look. So this question on the right-hand side, you can see the SEP, the DCI are both popping up, but there's no cross-cutting concept. And so what we're looking for students to do is to answer the question, which of these would be the best way to talk about the data in Figure 2? And so Figure 2 gives students the information about a model tiger family. There are 2 different tigers and then 2 different offspring that we see underneath that. And so we want them to think about the fact that half the offspring have their mother's color, and then half the offspring have their father's color. And in that way, they analyze that data. They identify what the differences are in there, using the term half, not all or not neither. But, third grade mathematics, we want to identify that there are half of the offspring have that color. And then we can ask another question that focuses on the cross-cutting concept. And we have a few of these on the site, so we're just going to pick one of those. So your classmate says that animals do not get traits from their parents. Based on the patterns in the tiger family diagram, is their claim correct? So in the diagram that we have above, they should be able to answer no, because both of the young tigers have traits that are similar to one or both parents. So they're not always the same, but they can have similar traits to those parents. And that is all about the pattern of that we can use similarities and differences in patterns to classify, sort, and communicate things about phenomena. And also that different organisms vary in how they look and function because they have different information, and that characteristics of organisms are inherited from their parents. So this is a 2-dimensional question hitting just the DCI and the cross-cutting concept. And now let's dive down into our more rigorous questions. So these we call summative questions. These are 3-dimensional questions where we really want students to take their understanding of the standard and their skills of understanding things through the lens of the SEP and the cross-cutting concept and apply that to something new. So these are going to be much more rigorous questions. And so we're going to take a look at this multiple choice question here, and then we'll dig into a free response question next. So the multiple choice question asks, so use the picture to make the best prediction about what the tiger's babies will look like. So in this case, we want them to understand that all of the babies will have blue or yellow eyes. And the other answers are meant to distract and ask students about stripes or white fur or blue eyes. But we want them to understand that these babies will have a split, probably a mix of either blue or yellow eyes, because they'll be somewhat like the parents, but not exactly the same, and not exactly like each of the parents individually. As an extension, and truly this is a mastery question, this is the goal of this standard, we're going to dig into one of our free response questions around this. So this question asks Your classmate is looking at the pictures in figure 1. She says, I think these tigers could all be from the same family. Do you agree or disagree? Use information from figures 1 and 2 to support your answer. So we're looking at the information up here, where students look at figure 1 and figure 2. And the theory is that these tigers are all in the same family. So they need to pull information from their analysis of this phenomena and the data that we give them, their understanding of patterns, and also how traits are inherited from parents to offspring, or from parents to children. And so this question, we asked teachers to grade students on the DCI, the SEP, and the cross-cutting concept independently. Students may be able to identify how that inheritance might work, but not talk about patterns. They may be able to identify, using mathematics, how many of the tigers, whether that fits in with their understanding of the phenomenon, analyze and interpret data or not. But they may, explain variation of traits and inheritance very, very well. And each of these we see as kind of separate, but highly, highly related areas for you to grade students. And again, the goal of all these questions is for you to give students sort of like a scaffolding to get up from a simple understanding of the ideas of the standards to an application and connection between those ideas and the cross-cutting concepts, the SEPs, or then finally some mastery questions at the very, very end, where they're taking their understanding of the DCI and then the skills of the SEPs and cross-cutting concepts and using those to make sense of and explain why or how something is working. Thank you very much for joining me for this video. I hope this was helpful in understanding how questions can be scaffolded for the NGSS. If you have any questions, leave a comment for the video. And if you'd like to explore more resources or try a pilot of NoOrbit, go ahead and click on the link in the description. And I hope y'all have a beautiful rest of your day.